In the silent void of the Vorinthia system, the mighty Klytheran fleet vanished without a trace. No explosion, no warning, just gone. What force could erase an empire's pride in seconds? Earth, a dismissed backwater, holds the secret. Unravel the mystery of humanity's defiance and the Starwraith's power. Read on to discover the galaxy's upheaval. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more captivating videos, and inspire us to create even more amazing content. In the vast expanse of space, silence reigned. The Klytheran fleet, once a symbol of unchallenged power, drifted through the black void of the Vorinthia system until it simply disappeared. One by one, their ships, from the mighty Harbinger-class dreadnoughts to the smaller Seraphine cruisers, blinked out of existence, levying nothing but an eerie absence. No explosion, no warning signal, just the cold, deafening void. In the heart of the Klytheran capital, the Grand Overseer Thalarin stared at the empty space where his fleet had been. The final transmission crackled through the communication channels. Earth has no ships like this. Humans can't. The words reverberated through the grand crystalline halls of Vorinthia's high conclave, freezing every Klytheran in place. Impossible, Thalarin muttered, his mandibles twitching with disbelief. For centuries, the Klytherans had ruled the galaxy. Their empire stretched across 18,000 star systems, their fleets unmatched in size and technology. Yet, here they were, staring into the abyss, unable to explain how an unimportant, backward planet, Earth, could have delivered such a blow. The transmission came from Fleet Commander Zeralik, the last officer to report before the fleet vanished. His voice had been calm, almost resigned. It's the humans. Their technology. It shouldn't exist. Zeralik's final words were a grim truth. Humans had something the Klytherans did not understand. Something that defied logic. For millennia, the Klytherans had valued Earth as little more than a coal-stained backwater, a planet with primitive fusion drives and rudimentary technology. They had kept humanity under embargo, keeping them in the shadows. But now, Earth's technology had shattered the Klytherans' most fundamental belief, that they were the pinnacle of creation. We have to move quickly, Thalarin said, his voice tight with fear. Gather the War Council. Humanity has just rewritten the rules. The High Conclave was not prepared for what was coming next, what no one, not even the Klytherans, could have anticipated. And somewhere, deep in the blackened void of space, the Starwraith vanished, slipping through the fabric of reality itself. Deep beneath the Nevada desert, hidden in a sprawling subterranean complex known only to a select few, the Starwraith hung silently in its docking bay. The ship was a masterpiece of human ingenuity, far beyond anything Earth had ever shown the galaxy. Built from an ancient relic, the Starwraith defied every law of physics the Klytherans had taken for granted. A neutron-fold drive hummed quietly at its core, its energy flux distorting the very fabric of spacetime around it. It was a technology no human should have had, forged in the dark underbelly of Earth's most classified facilities. Commander Lena Carver stood at the helm of the Starwraith, her sharp eyes scanning the holographic display as she charted their course through the void. This wasn't just any ship. It was humanity's answer to the Klytheran Empire's arrogance. Lena's fingers danced over the control panel, adjusting the ship's graviton shredders and singularity lances, weapons designed to tear apart entire fleets with pinpoint accuracy. These weren't merely weapons of war. They were an expression of human defiance, a symbol of everything humanity had endured. The first strike had been devastating. The Klytheran fleet, nearly 120 ships strong, had been decimated in a matter of minutes. The Starwraith's weapons, built with technology that shouldn't exist, ripped through their shields like paper, reducing each warship to cosmic dust. Not a single enemy vessel had survived. It was a message, and the galaxy had received it loud and clear. Humanity was no longer the underdog. Lena turned to her crew, her voice calm yet filled with the certainty of a commander who knew the weight of her mission. "We've been dismissed for too long," she said, her tone cold and resolute. "Let them see what happens when they underestimate us." The ship's neutron fold drive activated, sending them careening into hyperspace. In a blink, they vanished, leaving behind only the faintest echoes in the vast emptiness. Lena's mind was already focused on the next move. The Klytherans were not ready for what was coming, and neither was the rest of the galaxy. On the Klytheran capital of Vorinthia, the once pristine crystalline halls now felt suffocating. Grand Overseer Thalarin paced back and forth, his mandibles twitching in a rare show of anxiety. The High Conclave was in turmoil. Across the Grand Chamber, the most esteemed minds of the Dominion, each more brilliant than the last, huddled around holographic displays, their faces frozen in disbelief. The transmission had shattered their sense of invincibility. Fleet Commander Zeralic's final message played over and over again, each word sinking deeper into their minds. Earth has no ships like this. Humans can't. The Klytheran fleet to 120 ships, some of the most powerful in the galaxy, have been obliterated in seconds. How? Thalarin's voice was cold, yet laced with a thin thread of panic. How could they have done this? A primitive race, stuck in the dark ages of fusion drives. He cut himself off, staring at the image of the Starwraith, an invisible ghost in the void. Cutting down their ships without warning, an advisor, his voice trembling, spoke up. Grand Overseer, the weapons, the graviton shredders, the singularity lances, they shouldn't be possible. Earth cannot have this technology. Their fusion drives barely match our early designs from centuries ago. Thalarin's mind raced. The Klytherans had always considered Earth a backwater, a world of dirty skies and rusting machines. Their technology, a few hundred years behind the rest of the galaxy, had been ignored and embargoed. Earth was a problem, yes, but no more than an annoyance. Until now, the Starwraith, another advisor, whispered, fear creeping into his voice. It's not just the ship, the neutron fold drive. It bends reality. The humans have tapped into technology far beyond anything we've encountered. This shouldn't be possible. Thalarin's eyes narrowed as he stared at the star map. He knew what was coming. A threat, unlike any they had faced before, was on the horizon. The Klytherans had underestimated Earth, and that mistake might cost them everything. We prepare, Thalarin said, his voice steely with resolve. If they want war, we will give them one. Aboard the Starwraith, Commander Lena Carver stood tall at the helm, her sharp gaze fixed on the void outside. The ship hummed with a power that was as alien as it was human, born from centuries of defiance, and now ready to rewrite the fate of the galaxy. The ship's neutron fold drive pulsed, the energy surging through its core, distorting spacetime and allowing the Starwraith to disappear and reappear in the blink of an eye. It was no ordinary vessel. It was humanity's declaration of war. Lena's mind raced as she reviewed the data on the ship's holographic displays. Each weapon system was a marvel in itself. The graviton shredders, which could tear apart an enemy fleet in moments, the singularity lances, capable of annihilating entire planets. These weren't just weapons, they were the embodiment of human ingenuity and unyielding spirit. But it wasn't just the Starwraith's weaponry that made it a threat. At the ship's core was a relic, an obsidian prism, found deep within the ice of Antarctica, pulsing with energy no human mind could fully comprehend. Dr. Elias Morrow, working in a classified Siberian lab, had decoded the signals emitted by the prism. The message it carried was clear. This was no human technology. The prism had been left behind by the architects, an ancient race whose knowledge defied the laws of physics themselves. Lena's fingers tapped the controls, activating the prism's lattice connection. The web of energy stretched across the galaxy, aligning with hidden architect nodes buried deep within the fabric of space. She could feel it in her bones. The connection was growing stronger. Humanity, once dismissed as weak and inferior, was now tapping into something far older, far more powerful. This is just the beginning, Lena whispered to herself. The Klytherans had underestimated humanity, and soon, they would learn the true cost of their mistake. The Skull Reaver emerged from the blackness of space like a nightmare made real. a grotesque, biomechanical monstrosity. It was the ultimate weapon of the Klytheran Empire, standing at over 600 meters tall. Its jagged limbs were fused with ancient architect fragments and bioengineered horrors, making it a fusion of intellect and terror. Its heart pulsed with the twisted energies of the architect's most forbidden technology, and its psychic wail could shatter the will of any who faced it. The Skull Reaver's psychic shriek reverberated through the cold silence of space. Its sound a ripple that shook the very fabric of reality. It was an assault on the mind. Every crew member aboard the Starwraith could feel it, a weight pressing against their consciousness. Lena gritted her teeth, holding onto the bridge console as the wail tore at her thoughts. The ship's reinforced neural shields flickered, holding strong for now. But she knew this would be no easy battle. "It's coming for us," muttered Lieutenant Harris, his voice tight with strain as the ship's instruments flared with energy readings. "It's alive, and it's using the architect's tech to control the entire fleet." Lena's eyes locked onto the holographic display, watching as the Skull Reaver's massive form drifted closer, flanked by an armada of Klytheran warships. Its mind-bending psychic field reached out, trying to destabilize their systems. But humanity had prepared for this moment. Lena had tapped into the architect's lattice, a galaxy-spanning web of energy that flowed through the Starwraith like a Levian pulse. "Activate the lattice," Lena commanded, her voice cold and unwavering. The Starwraith's crew flickered to life as the prism activated, its lattice of architect nodes sensing with the Skull Reaver's psychic frequencies. The pulse shot through space, an overwhelming wave of harmonic energy that collided with the Skull Reaver's fury. The psychic wail faltered, the Skull Reaver recoiling in pain. Lena smiled, her hand steady on the controls. "They thought we were fragile. Let's show them how wrong they were." The battle had only just begun. The Skull Reaver loomed large on the display, its massive form casting a shadow across the Starwraith's bridge. Lena Carver gripped the helm, her eyes narrowed with focus. She could feel the pulse of the architect's technology coursing through the ship's systems, a connection now tethered to her own mind. The Skull Reaver was more than just a ship. It was a weapon of destruction, a nightmare made flesh, and it had been designed to break the will of any opponent. Yet humanity had something the Klytherans never expected: intelligence, resilience, and the ability to adapt. Deploying the singularity lances, Lena ordered, her voice sharp as a blade. The Starwraith responded instantly, its systems working in perfect harmony. The two singularity lances, one on each wing of the ship, powered up with an eerie hum. These weapons, designed to focus an immense amount of gravitational energy, could pierce any shield, destabilizing even the toughest armor. "Captain, we're getting a direct psychic link," Lieutenant Harris reported, sweat beading on his brow. The Skull Reaver was attempting to break through their neural defenses. It was a mind game, a battle of wills. But Lena wasn't about to let the ship, her ship, become a pawn in this twisted game. "Hold the shield steady. Let it come," Lena said, her eyes cold with determination. The Skull Reaver's psychic pulse hit the Starwraith with the force of a tidal wave, slamming against their shields with a deafening roar. The bridge trembled as the energy washed over them. But Lena, focused and unshaken, manipulated the prism's lattice in real time, vying the architect's energy to counteract the attack. The lattice responded, sending a counter-frequency that clashed with the Skull Reaver's psychic onslaught. For a moment, the wailing ceased. "Now," Lena whispered, with a calculated precision. The singularity lances fired, their beams of concentrated gravitational energy streaking toward the Skull Reaver. The first shot impacted its side, causing a massive ripple in the fabric of space itself. The second struck home, puncturing the Skull Reaver's core, sending shockwaves through its massive frame. The Skull Reaver staggered, its massive limbs twitching in agony as it tried to realign its systems. But it was too late. The Starwraith had already gained the upper hand. Lena's mind raced through the calculations. The Klytherans had underestimated humanity, but they were about to learn the cost of that mistake. The battle was far from over, but the tide had shifted. The Skull Reaver screeched, its enormous form writhing in agony as Lena Carver's Starwraith hovered just outside its reach. Poised for the final strike, the massive bioengineered beast was staggering, its systems overloaded by the singularity lancets. But it wasn't done yet. Its massive limbs flailed, trying to regain control, while a psychic wail vibrated the very fabric of space. The Skull Reaver's presence was a storm, raging, furious, and violent, but it had already suffered too much. Lena's voice was calm, cold, as she issued her next order. Deploy the graviton shredders, full power. The Starwraith's engines roared to life, and the graviton shredders, human technology that bent the very force of graviti, powered up with a low hum. These weapons had been designed to tear apart the molecular structure of anything they touched. Unlike the singularity lances that focused on gravitational energy, the shredders could destabilize and fragment the target's atomic bonds on a subatomic level. The Skull Reaver's shields, though formidable, were no match for the force Lena was about to unleash. As the Starwraith powered toward the Skull Reaver, Lena held her breath. The enemy ship was vulnerable, exposed, its systems already in disarray. She waited for the perfect moment, and then, without hesitation, gave the command. Fire! The graviton shredders unleashed their fury. Waves of concentrated gravitational waves washed over the Skull Reaver, tearing through its armor with explosive force. The beast's massive, twisted form began to fracture, its outer layers splitting open as though made of paper. The Skull Reaver howled again, but this time, the sound was nothing more than the desperate cry of a dying creature. Lena's eyes never left the display. The shredders hit critical components of the Skull Reaver, its neural network, its engine core, turning the beast into nothing more than a collapsing heap of metal and flesh. The Starwraith circled, its powerful engines keeping it at the edge of the chaos. As the Skull Reaver disintegrated in a dazzling explosion of light, it was over. Lena let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. The galaxy had just witnessed the true power of humanity. It wasn't just the Starwraith or the technology. It was the determination behind it. Mission complete, she said, her voice steady, as the Klytheran flagship's lights blinked out. Let's move. And with that, humanity had proven itself, once and for all. The Klytheran Empire had underestimated them. They would never make that mistake again. The Skull Reaver's destruction was the first crack in the Klytheran Empire's invulnerable facade. The mighty warship, once a symbol of Klytheran supremacy, was now nothing more than cosmic dust, scattered across the cold, unfeeling void. The Starwraith hung motionless in space, its crew silent, knowing the true weight of their victory. But the collapse of the Skull Reaver was only the beginning. The Klytheran Empire, once a towering colossus, was now beginning to crumble from within. Grand Overseer, they've destroyed our fleet, a trembling voice said, breaking the silence in the high conclave chambers. The Skull Reaver, our last hope, has fallen. Thalarin stood motionless, staring at the shattered holographic display in front of him. His heart pounded in his chest as he watched the remnants of the Skull Reaver fade from the screens, the light of its destruction still flickering in the darkness. The High Conclave was in complete disarray, their minds struggling to process what had just occurred. How could they have allowed this to happen? How had humanity, wielded the same power that had taken their greatest weapon from them? The Klytherans had always thought themselves superior. For thousands of years, they had ruled with an iron fist, their technology and dominance unchallenged. But now, they were left with nothing but the aftermath of their arrogance. They're coming for us, Thalarin muttered, his voice barely audible. His mind raced through the possibilities. What was left to save? Their fleets were in disarray, their vassal worlds beginning to stir with discontent. The entire empire was on the verge of collapse. We cannot fight them head-on, one of his advisors said, panic seeping into his voice. Their technology, we cannot understand it. It is beyond anything we have ever encountered. Another advisor, his eyes wide with fear, added, they're not like us. The humans are different. This war is already over. Thalarin clenched his fists, his mind torn between pride and the undeniable truth. The Klytheran Empire was crumbling, and humanity, once dismissed as insignificant, was the force that had torn it apart. "We fight to the end," Thalarin spat. But deep down, he knew the end had already come. Humanity had won. The Klytherans had underestimated them, and the cost of that mistake was catastrophic. The galaxy would never be the same again. The victory against the Klytherans echoed across the galaxy, a resounding declaration that the days of human insignificance were over. From the neon-lit streets of Tokyo to the vast, sun-baked deserts of the Sahara, humanity erupted in pride. The Starwraith, the ship that had shattered the unshakable might of the Klytheran Empire, was now a symbol of what they had achieved, what they could become. Lena Carver stood at the helm of the Starwraith, her gaze fixed on the stars ahead. The ship, once a secret weapon in the shadows, now felt like an extension of humanity's will, its power, its resilience, and its refusal to be crushed by an empire that had underestimated them for centuries. The Starwraith wasn't just a ship. It was the embodiment of everything humanity stood for: ingenuity, determination, and an unrelenting will to survive. Message from Earth. Lieutenant Harris called from his station, his voice carrying the weight of the moment. He activated the transmission, and the voice of the President of the United Nations echoed throughout the bridge. "Today, we are no longer the underdogs. Today, we are the future." Humanity had awakened. The broadcast reached every corner of Earth, igniting a fire that spread beyond the planet. The Starwraith's victory over the Klytherans was not just a military triumph. It was a cultural renaissance. People from all walks of life, from the bustling streets of Newark to the remote villages of Africa, were now aware of the potential that humanity held. They weren't just survivors. They were heirs to an ancient legacy, born from the remnants of the architects and awakened through their defiance. Dr. Elias Morrow, who had spent years decoding the enigmatic prism, now stood alongside Lena on the bridge, his eyes alight with realization. The prism wasn't just a weapon, it was a key to unlocking a network of power across the galaxy, a network that connected humanity to something far greater than their understanding. "We're only scratching the surface," Morrow said, his voice filled with awe. "There's so much more out there." Lena nodded, her heart swelling with pride. Humanity had not just defeated an empire. They had set in motion a new age. The Starwraith wasn't the final answer. It was the beginning, and this was only the first step in a journey that would stretch across the stars. As humanity, no longer an afterthought in the grand scheme of the universe, began to forge its true place among the stars, the Starwraith vanished into the folds of space, its engines firing with a hum of power. Humanity's ascent had begun. The Starwraith soared through the blackness of space, its sleek hull reflecting the distant light of stars. As it navigated the deep silence of the cosmos, behind it, the shattered remnants of the Klytheran Empire lay scattered, a once dominant power reduced to a fading memory. But Earth, humanity's cradle, was no longer a forgotten backwater. It had ascended, its legacy forged in the heart of battle, its potential unlocked by the ancient technology of the architects. Lena Carver stood on the bridge, looking out at the endless void, a quiet sense of accomplishment settling over her. She knew this was just the beginning. The victory over the Klytherans had not only shifted the balance of power, but it also set humanity on a path to greatness, one that would stretch beyond Earth and into the stars. Humanity's true place among the stars is no longer in question, Lena muttered, her voice steady. "We've proven what we're capable of." Dr. Elias Morrow joined her, his face alight with excitement. "We've only begun to scratch the surface of what's out there, Lena. The architects left us a network, an entire infrastructure of power waiting to be tapped. The Starwraith's crew had become more than just soldiers and scientists. They had become the heralds of a new age. With each passing day, new prisms activated across the galaxy, signaling the rise of humanity as the galaxy's newest force. Earth was no longer a planet on the fringe. It was now the center of a legacy, and humanity was ready to take its place, not as conquerors, but as the torchbearers of a brighter future for the galaxy. The journey had just begun.